get started at e4. Gary's very happy because he's been a Najdorf Sicilian man for much of his career. He started out as a Caro-Kann player. He took up e5 on move 1 for a bit, and then Edward Gutfeld said to him, you know, Gary, you're a natural-born criminal. You should play the Najdorf. And Gary took his advice. And Queen c7, a little bit of a wrinkle over the very, very standard Bishop e7. And know that Queen c7 was a favorite of Boris Gelfand. He enjoyed this rouser-like structure on the king side.
Allowing bishop takes f6, g takes f6.
Exactly.
The damaging
Double
of the
pawns.
structure.
Now, again, all of these moves are very, even though I'm not a Najdorf player, I've seen these moves before. By the way, the queen went from d1 to f3. It didn't continue her journey queen c5. That's actually a mistake. Queen h5 is a mistake because it invites the move queen c5. And that's why queen f3. a2, a3. I always thought that it's a success for black in an open Sicilian when I get to play the move b5, and it provokes the opponent to play a2, a3, advantage black in that exchange of moves. b7, b5, very useful move. a2, a3, it could be a potential move to regret.
But it does momentarily stop that move b4, which just displaces the knight from c3. Quite an important move, and it's not that easy to get that attack going via a5 and then b4. You would love to play a5. Problem is that b5 pawn is hanging. So this is what black will need to find a way to try to get his pawns on that side rolling down the board.
Yeah, now it really looks like the players have transposed it to just a straight-up rouser, something that we saw in Bucharest.
Bucharest a lot, yeah.
Right, where h7, h5, bishop h6, queen c5, and even the king just dropping in the center of the board, king e7. All very, very standard. Again, I believe this is all completely theory. I was a little bit surprised personally by knight c6, but okay, Gary, just getting that bishop e7 or king e7. What would be your choice, Christian?
This is indeed theory. I'm watching the database right now. Bishop e7 is one of the moves. Of course, king e7 right now is a little bit dangerous because I think I do have time to get that rook on f1 very quickly. And then I'm going to obviously have a lot of threats on the f-file. So you have to be a little bit careful. Another maneuver, one that you were mentioning, Yasser, very important, is queen to c5. That's the ideal square for the queen. Because from there,
right,
it could potentially land on e5. And the big difference in the big challenge for white in this position is to control the dark squares, especially that e5 dark square in the center, because there's no more dark square bishop. Exactly. That's the big problem. You're going to have to find a way to control that with the knight. You're going to have to find ways to jump with the knight around knight b2, knight b4, knight to f3, potentially try to displace that queen from e5. This is going to be a battle.
Big queen did see the queen c5. Very, very quickly, Jorden answered bishop e2. After queen c5, he could have played captures on e6, captures on e6, and taken the pawn on f6. I suspect that after rook g8, he just felt that that wasn't a position that he was interested in playing. Look at this move. Rook a7 by Gary. Again, inviting white to try to capture this pawn on f6 if he wants. But now that the rook is on a7, actually supports bishop to g7. And black would get a huge initiative at the cost of the doubled f-pawn. So
this is a question for you, Yasser.
Yeah.
Because I'm seeing in the database again by Tukmakov. Was Tukmakov in 1984, all the way back then, was Tukmakov ever one of Gary's seconds?
I don't recall. Yuri Dohoyan recently passed away, was a key part of Gary's trainers, but I don't think Vladimir. No, I'm pretty sure the answer is no. Tukmakov from Ukraine. Yeah, I think the answer is no. Why? Because are we following a game of Vladimir Tukmakov?
this was a game by Vladimir Turkmakov, the only game in the database with this move, rook to a7. So it just goes to show maybe that Garry actually is starting to remember things from when he used to analyze these positions regularly, religiously. And maybe this rook a7 will come as a surprise for the youngster. Maybe he didn't see this game before.
Right. Rook a7, rather standard in some knighters, especially poison pawn knighters. What you were saying, it's about the dark squares. Black does possess the dark square bishop. The queen takes up a very, I want to say, lofty perch on e5. It eyeballs the knight on c3, eyeballs the king side, and protects the pawn on f6 for the moment. Rook f1 saying, I'm not worried about the pawn. And Garry saying, well, it was never really about the h2 pawn. What this move says, rook c7, is I'm warming up as black to the very standard exchange sacrifice that occurs in the Open Sicilians. King b1 saying, okay, I'm going to sidestep ideas of d5 and bishop takes a3. Check. What's your plan? How are you developing your king side? And that's the real question for Garry right now. Should he play bishop g7 and castle short? Is that too dangerous? Or should he just once again play king e7? But in that case, the king on e7 feels a little bit vulnerable.
Yes, sir. Those are amazing questions, but he needs to answer them fast. I do want to draw your attention to the fact that Garry has 1 minute left on the clock. 1 minute left on the clock.
Very slow play by Garry.
Van Foreest, 3 minutes left on the clock.
That's poor time management, and usually that's just a show. That shows rust.
Exactly.
I mean, it shows that you're not playing with the rhythm that blitz players really need to. And Garry's a little bit shaking his head. I think he feels the pressure of the ticking clock. And boy, don't we all, especially in blitz, we don't like to be behind 30 seconds. 2 minutes? That's huge.
That's a lot.
And Jorden played it very quickly. What did he come up with?
I think either h4 or g4. G4 doesn't make any sense. h4.
What an extraordinary h4.
He's trying to solidify that weakness on h5. This is
Bishop
the key right
e7. Okay. So basically what this move says is I'm going to defer doing anything with my king. I'm just going to defend this pawn on f6. By the way, yes, I'm very much thinking about playing rook g8 as well. Also, I'm used to seeing king to d8, like say bishop to d7, king to d8, and so on. Queen e3, very cagey play by Jorden.
Now that the bishop is not on f8 anymore to attack the queen via h6, white is ready to go queen to e3.
Okay, so no, I was about to say, I thought Garry should have played rook c5 to block the diagonal so queen b6 wasn't playable. I thought the queen was perfect on e5. King f8 by Garry. Ooh, covering the g7 square. Queen g3 had the idea of queen g7. King f8, trade. Garry is... Something's wrong with Garry. He's like shaking his head.
Well, his position is not amazing right now after queen g6. I'm not 100% sure how you defend the position. Queen to e5? Is that what you're doing?
Oh, without question. And
he did it, and we have rook d3 on the board.
Ooh, but this rook d3 is a prelude to rook to g3, and Garry is definitely feeling the pressure. And again, he doesn't like his position. Bishop to d8. The rook on c7, covering g7 for the moment. But isn't this pawn, the Pesci, gonna feel the heat after rook to d1? Maybe just rook.
He played rook to g3.